All right, folks, this one's kind of funny. Yesterday, a visibly confused Donald Trump announced that he planned to soon end the brief pause in a painful and unnecessary trade war that he triggered with our two biggest trading partners, Canada and Mexico. But during the announcement, he mocked and criticized the current trade agreement between the US, Canada, and Mexico, asking who the hell could possibly sign such a disastrous deal. But as the internet pointed out, it was Donald Trump who signed that deal, which earned him a rare community note on Twitter. Even right-wing Twitter is calling him out for this. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, folks, unfortunately, this is a reminder, a comical reminder in a roundabout way, that the current president is a pathological liar, an unparalleled moron, and also somebody who doesn't seem to be in the best mental shape to be president. So this is what Trump said yesterday, announcing the resumption of the trade war with Canada and Mexico.
I mean, who can blame them if they made these great deals with the United States, took advantage of the United States on manufacturing, on just about everything, every aspect that you could imagine they took advantage of. I look at some of these agreements, I'd read them at night, and I'd say, who would ever sign a thing like this? So the tariffs will go forward, yes, and we're going to make up a lot of territory. All we want is reciprocal. We want reciprocity. We want to have the same.
So there you have it. Donald Trump plans to resume his 25% sweeping widespread tariffs on our two biggest trading partners because he says that Canada and Mexico are screwing the United States. They're taking advantage of us. Who the hell in the United States would sign such a deal? Well, Donald Trump was the one who signed a deal, and I want to play you a clip of Donald Trump announcing the signing of that deal in 2020.
Everybody said this was a deal that could not be done. Too complicated, too big, couldn't be done, we got it done. And today we're finally ending the NAFTA nightmare and signing into law the brand new US-Mexico-Canada agreement. Very special. Very, very special. The USMCA is the largest, fairest, most balanced, and modern trade agreement ever achieved. There's never been anything like it. Other countries are now looking at it, but there can't be a border like that because, believe it or not, that is by far the biggest border.
So there you have it. Trump touting, celebrating. This is the biggest, the fairest, the most amazing trade deal ever accomplished. Everyone said it couldn't be done. I got it done. And again, this earned him on that first clip a fact check. Donald Trump signed the USMCA, a thing like this specifically addressing trade with Mexico and Canada, and in 2020. Donald Trump inked the deal. As the Huffington Post points out, Trump accidentally insults himself. Who would ever sign a thing like this? Trump recently rebuked a 2020 trade deal known as the US-Mexico-Canada Agreement, even though he signed it. So damn funny. Trump claimed during a White House press conference Monday that the impacts of the USMCA would be alleviated by a 25% tariff on all Canadian and Mexican goods starting next week, and unwittingly criticized himself after rebuking America's neighbors. Trump praised the USMCA in 2020 as the best agreement we've ever made and lauded it for replacing the nightmare NAFTA, North American Free Trade Agreement ratified under President Clinton, calling it the worst deal ever made. He criticized NAFTA repeatedly during his 2016 presidential campaign against Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, blaming her at the time for her husband's actions. Quote, it's an improvement at the margins, but far from perfect and not nearly as different as Trump claims, said Jared Bernstein, the economic advisor to President Biden in January 2020 of the USMCA. Quote, in fact, there will be almost surely no notable differences in trade flows. So there you have it. Visibly confused Donald Trump insults himself, gets mocked by the internet, gets fact-checked on right-wing media for his stupidity. And then, of course, we have to remind ourselves of the trade war that Trump is resuming. Remember, and I'm going to read you, this is a Wall Street Journal opinion. The Wall Street Journal is a conservative publication. They are a sister publication of Fox News. They are pro-Republican, pro-Trump, but they're also principled enough, consistent enough, that when Trump does stupid or dishonest things, they are inclined to call it out because they want Trump to succeed, and they think that this is a disaster for both Trump and the Republican Party and ultimately for the country as a whole, and they're right. But I want you to remember, Trump announced this trade war. I mean, he threatened it during the campaign. He did campaign on this, and he's triggered the trade war last month, then paused it by making separate agreements with Mexico and Canada in exchange for basically nothing substantial that was new. I mean, Mexico agreed to put thousands of Mexican National Guard on the U.S.-Mexico border, but they did that already under President Biden, and Biden didn't have to threaten a tariff or a trade war to get it done. So no meaningful concession. As a matter of fact, Mexico extracted a concession from Trump. They got something from Trump that they'd never gotten before, which is Trump's commitment. Of course, Trump's a pathological liar, so I wouldn't be surprised if he broke it, to try to stem the flow of guns from the United States into Mexico. So you could easily make the argument that, at least in terms of the on-paper terms, President Scheinbaum of Mexico came out ahead over Trump. Trump also made a deal, again, in exchange for a temporary pause with Canada that effectively did the same thing. Canada said, hey, we'll do this, this, and this. We'll put troops on the the U.S.-Canadian border. We'll do this, that, and the other thing. But those were already terms in a deal made under the Biden administration back in December. The only meaningful difference is that they said they would appoint their own border czar, right? This token position in the Canadian government. So again, Trump threatened a trade war, a potentially disastrous, mutually destructive trade war with our two biggest trading partners for no reason, got very little in return, and now it's set to resume. As the Wall Street Journal points out, this is the dumbest trade war in history. Trump will impose 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico for no good reason. And again, this was written back in late January 31st, when the trade war was first set to be triggered. And then again, Trump cut these deals in exchange for virtually nothing with Canada and Mexico, in exchange for a month-long delay. And they go into the many reasons about what this will do to the American economy, because of course, consumers will ultimately pay for increased tariffs. Importers pay the tariffs, and then the importers and the retailers that sell these goods are going to pass on the cost of the tariffs to the American consumer. The macroeconomic data is very conclusive about this. That's why even conservative economists don't like widespread tariffs, and they don't like trade wars. Surgical, precise tariffs can sometimes be good, especially for national security reasons, but that's not what Trump is proposing here. He is talking about resuming the dumbest trade war in history and eroding the relationship with our two biggest trading partners, while he simultaneously eroding the trade relationship with our third biggest trading partner, China, and potentially driving Mexico and Canada to consider alternatives like China so they would be less dependent on the United States. And I'll also point out that as a consequence of Trump's tariff war, trade war, he has actually breathed life. He has resuscitated the Liberal Party in Canada, which is led by Prime Minister Trudeau. Trudeau is not particularly popular. He actually announced his resignation and called for new elections. His party was on life support. He did it to try to save his party from a total shellacking. But Trump threatening the stupid, unnecessary trade war has actually made the Canada's Liberal Party once again competitive. They may indeed retain control over the federal government because of Donald Trump's actions. And even the conservative frontrunner against Trudeau's party is condemning Trump for this. So both the conservatives and liberals in Canada, one of our top three biggest trading partners, they are unified in their opposition to Trump. Again, this is just a staggering miscalculation by Donald Trump because he wants the PR win. He wants to beat his chest and try to bully our allies in hopes that that will somehow offset the potential economic harms. But I don't know where this is going. It's possible that they'll dangle car keys in front of his head again and get another month or another year reprieve instead of a mutually destructive trade war. But again, it just goes to show where we are. The most powerful man on earth, at least nominally, is not just a pathological liar, not just an idiot, but he's so confused and so addled that he is publicly insulting himself. And you know those reporters who are more than aware, like, oh my God, you were the one who inked this deal that you're insulting, had to probably suppress laughter as he embarrassed himself on stage, insulting himself and his own accomplishments because he's either too stupid or too dishonest to acknowledge the fact that he created the deal that he's now throwing under the bus. Crazy stuff. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.